Welcome to the start of a short series on the items in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. In this video, I'm going to go over the items you'll most likely see in top spots. I'll give you 3 pieces of advice for each item with at least one thing to do and one thing not to do. I've split this series into 3 parts, so next week I'll go over the mid spot items and then the bottom spot items the week after. But without further ado, let's start giving her, bud. Just before getting started, if you enjoy this video, consider subscribing. It's free. It helps me out a lot, and you can always change your minds. Coins are often overlooked in this game, as probably all of our first impressions were that it's a completely useless item, and the only value it gives is a boost in your coin count. Well, believe it or not, this can be a very important item when front running. If you have a coin in your first slot and protection in your pocket, in most cases, you want to hold on to your coin at least until the next set. This is because boosts can become a serious problem if you're willing to put your protection on the line. Again, at first glance, the coin is a pretty useless item, but consider it protection to your protection. This is very similar to my first point, but you almost never want to spam your coin, and you definitely don't want to trail your protection immediately. I can only see this being useful if you're in first and your opponents are right behind you and will spam anything at you if they get the chance. Beyond putting your protection on the line of getting stolen, if you trail someone right away, there's a good chance that an opponent or two behind you has a red while you're defenseless. While you could feel safe trailing immediately, ironically, it's a huge risk doing so. Something I really like about the coin is that you can use it to sneak attack opponents. Someone behind you could get comfortable if you have a coin in your first slot, and that will give you the perfect opportunity to surprise them. But don't forget that your opponents could plan to do the same to you at some point. The banana is probably the weakest of the protection items, but it's still protection nonetheless, which is nice. Backing a banana in your opponent's blind spot can help you break away quite a bit. Since it will stay in place in almost all cases, if your opponents aren't expecting your banana, they'll be in for a surprise without a doubt. Now, while backing bananas in unexpected places can be a good thing, you don't want to back them too far before an item set. Unless you have protection in your pocket, which even then, I wouldn't want to get rid of double protection, you don't want to back a banana shortly after one set and well before the following set. You need to be careful and be sure you likely won't get screwed over before taking risks like these. You can also use bananas to dodge blue shells. This is kind of a do and a don't, as you want to be calculated when you do this. For instance, you don't want to throw away your only protection, being a banana, to only limit the damage done from the blue, only to get redded afterwards. However, under the right circumstances, this can help you get right back up to speed, which is nice. The green shell is very similar to the banana in the sense that it's a common protection item, but you do have many more ways you can be aggressive with greens. I've talked about using coins as a way to surprise people when they least expect it, and you can really take advantage of that with greens. They go back really quickly in this game, so unless your opponents see the green coming ahead of time, they will very likely get hit. Smart bounced greens can be really annoying to deal with, but intentionally smart bounced greens are a whole new beast. On a tight section on the track, smart bouncing greens can be near impossible to avoid, as you most likely won't be able to swerve out of the way in a calculated manner. So take advantage of this in a tight section on the track. It can make some serious waves. While greens can be pretty satisfying to land, that doesn't mean you should always toss them, regardless of which direction you're throwing them. One way or another, greens are protection, and I think it's really important to embrace that and appreciate that. You shouldn't go out of your way to try and make clips at the expense of potentially getting redded because you have no protection. The bomb can make a serious impact on the race depending on how many people are affected by it. You could be in a tough spot if you're on the receiving end of a bomb. I keep going back to the surprise factor, but the bomb probably shines in this sector more than any other offensive item. Using your coin and immediately backing a bomb could be insane for you or your team. As long as your opponents aren't too close to you, you should be giving her. This can especially be beneficial in a tight section on the track. Whipping bombs forward has become a pretty popular trend lately, as it's one of the easiest and somehow satisfying ways to take someone in front of you out. If you have a wide space and feel like popping a bomb forward, go for it. You could make some waves in the race. However, you need to be calculated when throwing bombs forward. Throwing bombs forward in a tight section on the track can be a recipe for disaster if you don't hit your target. Even then, you could hit your target, but there's a good chance you could still hit yourself in the process. Generally, save forward bombs for wide sections on the track. Even though your opponents will have more room to avoid it, the radius will still make that a challenge. The Super Horn is without a doubt the best item to pull if you're front running. It covers nearly all of your bases, and I think regardless of whether if it's in your first or second slot, you should hold on to it for as long as you can. Speaking of which, having a coin in your first slot and a horn in your pocket can make for a pretty nasty combo. If you have protection in your first slot, then you're in an insane position in the race. Anyway, being able to protect your horn can go a long way, and you can ensure that no matter what comes your way, you can break it like it's another day in the office. The horn's signature feature is the ability to break a blue shell. This can make teams very comfortably toss blue without thinking about a ghost, shock, or the remainder of the race. As a result, if your horn is in your second slot, keep it there, and ideally, horn the blue as soon as you can, spamming your items in an instant. You don't want to take any chances here, so be alert. Stop trolling with the horn is something you can do, but be advised that this isn't always the play. Getting hit by the horn doesn't mean a whole lot, as you can get back up to speed really quickly. If you can horn your opponents off, I think you should go for it, but if it's on a straightaway, it very likely won't be that special. The red shell is really good in this game, and you can take advantage of that. At the same time, so can your opponents. My favorite thing to do with the red is taking opponents out right after they pass an item set, but fast enough so they can't pull protection. If I'm doing this in second, my goal is to get a second place box or two and end up in first directly after. I'm surprised that I don't see this play out online that often, honestly. It's a great strategy overall. On the flip side, you generally don't want to take an opponent out before the item set if you have the option. Let's say you do so and your team has top 2 afterwards. What if the opponent you took out pulls double reds while second place only has mushrooms? I know this is a rare scenario, but the point is that there are so many benefits to throwing your red to take your opponent out right after the item set if the opportunity is there. And just a general tip in case you aren't already using this, chaining your reds into an item set to take out your opponent's protection is always a great way to have a good shot at taking your opponent out by pulling another red or two. It's pretty common, but very effective. And rounding out the video, let's talk about the speed item you'd pull in top spots, the mushroom. It's pretty cool. Mushrooms give you the opportunity to pull off some shortcuts that can help you quite a bit. This may seem like common knowledge, but that doesn't change the fact that the mushroom is incredibly useful when trying to push up to the front, as long as you don't pull it too far back, of course. And outside of the super horn, the only other way to dodge a blue without getting hit or falling off is with a mushroom. If you don't know how, just use your mushroom as the blue shell is descending and you'll be given her full throttle. But just remember that getting blued is only slightly worse than getting redded, so if you have a shroom and a coin, in most cases you should probably aim to get protection. And lastly, do not waste your mushrooms. Like, don't use them on boost panels, don't use them in the air when you're not on a glider, and don't use them on super tight turns. There are a ton of scenarios where mushrooms have at least some sort of value, whether it be through taking a shortcut or merely passing someone, regardless of it being your opponent or teammate. Do not take them for granted. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And stay tuned for the mid-spot items coming in hot next week. I think you'll like it quite a bit. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic day and keep on giving her, bud.